Hi, in this video we're going to paint some botanicals together using the negative painting method. And it's an easy way to create depth in your paintings. It's super fun and it's rather addictive, so you can always do this little exercise. Grab your paintbrush and let's go. Let's start to define the first layer of our painting using the wet and wet technique. For this, you simply apply some water all over your sheet. To make your life easier, I would recommend you to use 100% cotton paper, as it holds the water the best and you can take your time later when you apply your colors. As the whole sheet of paper is wet, I start now to bring in my paint, using different shades of green. I personally used permanent green olive as a base and lighten it up with cadmium yellow light. And to darken my green, I used ivory black. If you don't have these colors or you don't want to use them, no worries, you can go with whatever green or other color you want. You don't have to paint exactly what I paint to understand negative painting. And for this first layer, you just see me dripping in the paint. In areas that I want to have darker, I put more paint or darker paint, and where I want to have it lighter, I water my paint down or use, for example, more yellow. You can't make any mistake in this layer, so just go with the flow and enjoy how the colors blend. After dripping in so much color, it got a little bit too wet, so you see me using a dry brush to soak up the leftover water. And here you also can see how I just spread in some water, some clean water, to get white effects. This is how the background looks after drying. You see it looks super smooth because of the wet and wet technique. Now we can start to draw leaf shapes on it. I decided for a heart-shaped leaf, as it's a quite easy shape to draw for the beginning, but of course you can draw any other shape you like. Now, with the second layer, we start our negative painting process, which means we paint everything around the leaves and not on the leaves themselves. When we are done with the painting around the outlined leaves, we let the color dry again and draw in some other leaves behind our first leaves. So you will see the leaves we drew first will stand out and build the lightest area of our painting. As there are 2 more layers to come, keep it still light on the second layer. As the more layers you create, the darker you go. Here we go again, after the second layer dried. We can now draw some more leaves behind the first leaves. This time keep in mind that the leaves are overlapping, so you don't need to see the whole heart shape anymore. This creates some more areas around the leaves that we can fill with a darker green to create the depth. This time you have to paint a little bit more thoughtful and keep in mind what is a leaf and what are the areas around the leaves, especially when you turn your sheets as I do it in the video. With the third layer, I think you're already a pro in drawing leaves behind and fill the areas between the leaves with an even darker paint. From layer to layer you have less areas to paint, so the nice thing about negative painting, it gets easier and easier within the process. With our 3 layers we already have some feeling of depth, but to be frank, the leaves are quite boring. So let's paint some details on the leaves, also going darker in layers like we did before. I decided to show the leaf veins as brightest parts, so I left them out and just painted everything around them. I started with the 2 big leaves in focus of the picture. If you want, you can also draw in the leaf veins before you paint. I just felt it's fine to keep them quite big and abstract, and to be frank, I was quite lazy. And remember, before you go darker, let your painting dry again. You know the process already. I just apply the darker paint on top of our first layer and I make it next to the veins. So it's kind of a shadow in there. And what I do later on here for this layer, I don't let it dry completely and directly drop in my darkest color here to get some gradient and some other wash effects on here. For the leaves in the background, I used the lighter green to put them not so much on focus, and I also just applied 2 layers, and if you want to add more details, free to do so. As you will see in the finished painting, I also added some outlines and some highlights with colored pencil, so I used a green colored pencil and also a white one, so don't feel shy also to mix the media here. We are near the finish line, so carefully remove your tape and voila, you made it! You have created a simple but sweet botanical painting. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you need a further tip how to get your painting flat again if it's buckled because of the wet and wet technique, you can find another video about this in the end card. And feel always free to share your experience in the comments, and yeah, see you at the next video. Bye!